So, yeah, we don't get scrimmages. You don't get a preseason. So, you just nonstop go against each other. So, I think we're the only sport in America that doesn't have any type of scrimmages before you know, enter a season. So that game one, guess what? There's going to be things, you can prepare all you want, but you're preparing off things that happened last fall, whether it's at Mercyhurst or Youngstown State. And there's a lot of new faces at Mercyhurst. There's a lot of new faces here. So no matter how hard you prepare, you better be ready for the unexpected. And, going through camp, going through spring, those are the things that we focused on and, try to have our mindset of what complementary football looks like, what we want to look like. You go all through camp with offense versus defense, offense, and it's ultra competitive. How do you bring that team together now as one? And that's I think the greatest challenge and something that we talk about every day. But come Thursday night at 6:02, we'll be one, and we got to be ready to play great football.
Talk a lot about taking steps forward even from year to year. How much more confident are you going into this season than maybe even last, just with the amount of kids that return and being settled as well?
Probably, we're all learning. It's a whole new era of college football with the, portal, with NIL. You look back at mistakes maybe you made 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And, the one thing that we really focus on is controlling what we can control. We can't control who may leave us, but I can control how many freshmen we bring in every year. And that's probably the number one thing that we learned. And probably 2 years ago when we went to the playoffs and we lost a lot of guys, I probably didn't recruit enough freshmen in those first couple years here with COVID that now, guess what? We have 29 freshmen, on our roster. And I think those are one areas that you got to make those improvements. I think the brotherhood, not losing a player in the spring portal was huge for us. It's first spring we've ever done that. And we have starters, that I know FBS programs probably wanted and we're recruiting. And that kind of tells you a little bit about this team. A lot of fourth-year players. We brought some new faces in, not only with the freshmen, but, defensively brought some portal guys in. But those fourth-year guys, those fourth, fifth-year guys, I think have a strong bond, and they want to prove it. They were part of that playoff run. They were part of going 4-8 last year, and I think they stuck together. Their focus, it's more of a player-led program, probably more than it's ever been in the last 6 years, which I really like. I always say a little less of me, a little more of you, because you're the ones that got to play the football game. So that's probably what we've seen the most probably since spring and going into summer camp is just how our players are leading, setting the standard and our young guys picking up on that and holding them accountable. That gets me the most excited. And come Thursday night, I'm excited. I can't tell you, we did a lot of offense and a lot of defense in the spring and in summer. Now we game plan and, see what our players can do best offensively, defensively, and special teams.
How would you describe this team? I know you touched on it. Is it a veteran team? Is it
Yeah, veteran. Yeah, you can say the 29 freshmen, but I would say veteran team. I feel, you look at the offensive side of the ball, there's probably more veterans on the offensive side of the ball. But shoot, when I look at, even the defensive side of the ball, the Mike Wells, Preston Zandier, you got an older guy in Dathan Hickey. Makai Shahid has, played football, started all the games last year. DJ Harris, may have been a transfer in from Tiffin, but played a lot of football at Tiffin, played the whole season for us last year. So I do see it as a veteran. I think that's where you see the leadership. And some of these guys had opportunities, and guess what? They chose to stay in this locker room. They chose to represent Youngstown State University and Youngstown State football. And, and we're certainly glad. It's about, for us, we're a developmental program. We develop them, then you got to retain them. That's probably the most difficult thing. And to know that we're able to retain those guys after spring ball went a huge way of going into summer camp.
Is that a major change in philosophy for you? Like maybe a little less portal, a little more high school freshman, or is it, hey, we still not the same with the portal. We just need more depth.
No, I really believe in today's world, you got to keep bringing in really good freshmen. We brought in, when I tell you how many freshmen we brought in, 6 of those guys were mid-year guys. So they're almost like sophomores now. They went through spring ball for us, and some of those guys are going to play. There's a different type of player available to you now that's coming out of high school because some teams just go straight portal. Those guys didn't think they were going to be Penguins going into their senior year. They had offers from all these other places, and then all of a sudden in December, we're signing them. And they're good football players. I think even our veterans would say, we had the radio show yesterday, and Preston's like, I'm glad this is my last year because those 2 younger linebackers under me, man, they're good athletes. They just got to learn the ropes, got to learn how to play football. And that's kind of what gets us excited. And you got to be ready to replace guys a lot earlier. That's what I can control. Okay, if I lose a guy, well, I got to have a guy that's been preparing for 2 years ready to replace him. And that's where probably 2 years ago, wasn't quite ready for that.
Is there more commitment with high school kids than there are portal kids? Obviously, they're willing to change if they're in the portal, but do you notice a little bit more commitment to the program long term?
No, I don't. And we kind of look. It's like the portal guys we get are usually Division II or FCS that got to maybe graduated and, just want to play up just like a lot of guys do. They want to play up. But when you have a young man that's been in your program, let's say like a Max Tomczak's been here 5 years. He's an all-league wide receiver, started as a walk-on here, has over 2,000 yards. Right? Trust me, he could have went anywhere, in the Big Ten, had opportunities. But wanted to stay here and finish his career and knows that, he had 70 receptions last year. If I go somewhere else, I don't know if I'll get 70 receptions. So a lot of kids too, and they look too. I mean, we've been fortunate with guys in the NFL. And where did they get it from? They came from here. So, you don't get not seen by being here. The thing we have is nobody's going to get rich in Youngstown. Meaning, you can go be a member on a team and they're making 6-digit. That's not even close. We're not even close to that. Not even. And our guys know that. We try to take care of our kids the very best we can. They know they got to earn it. You take a guy like Des Lee, he was probably a .25 scholarship guy as a freshman, had to earn a full scholarship, and he's one of the top tackles in the country now.
But this week it's Mercyhurst, next week on the schedule it's Robert Morris. Do you like those regional non-conference games?
I do. I always get on. I wish we, besides that, could get some regional games with that other conference that's in our state. It'd be nice to get on a bus and, go play an FBS, and for some reason, they schedule out-of-state games. I see Lafayette coming into our state to play one of those games, or Tarleton coming in to play one of those games. And, I can't control that, but it would be nice to have one of those. But, yeah, I like playing regional, whether it's Duquesne, Robert Morris, Mercyhurst, and sometimes I wish we would kind of get that respect from those other schools in that other league.
You mentioned Duquesne, and last year they came up here and kind of stunned you. This is a veteran group.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah. No, yeah. You got to talk about, we got to learn from our past. It's a different football team than we were last year. But the understanding that, in 8 losses, how many of those were at the end of the games besides 2? And we go back. I can go back 2 years ago when we went to the play. How many games did we win on the last play there that got us to get those wins? So, our kids understanding the competition, you got to be ready to play football no matter who you're playing. For us, we get, 4 games to see who we are before we enter league play. And our league play is very important to us. Without a preseason, this is the time we got to learn who we are for 2025, and it starts Thursday at 6:02. We're going to know a lot more at about 10 o'clock that night of who we are as a football team and football program.
What do you hope to see?
I want to see, and when I talk about complementary football, I want to see how our guys respond. I want to see when our defense can get a 3 and out, when our special teams can get great field position for our offense. Can we score points? Can we score touchdowns? If mistakes are going to happen, because mistakes happen, and we turn the ball over, if our defense going to take the field and get a stop for us? Is our special teams going to create an explosive that creates energy for our sidelines? So, we've been discussing what really going into detail of what complementary football looks like. We can say offense scores points, defense wins games, special teams wins championships, but it goes even deeper. And I think the attention to detail, and I praise my assistant coaches this year and coordinators, the attention to detail, I think, has we really improved upon that. And that comes with kids that have been in your program that are ready to take that next step of football IQ.
Obviously, Mercyhurst is a program that's new-ish to the Division I and FCS.
Yeah.
What have you kind of seen from them, and what are you expecting out of them? What's kind of their identity?
Throwing the football. I mean, their quarterback was nominated as Player of the Year for the NEC. Those don't just come to you. That he earned that. They can throw the football. I think they were the highest passing team, yardage in the NEC last year. So they can put points on the board. You watched the Duquesne game. They battled them all the way to the fourth quarter and a play here or there. And that's the difference in that ball game. So, they're making the transition. I think Coach Remedio does a great job as head coach. He's been there. He understands. It's almost like Youngstown in the 80s making that move from the Division II to Division I AA at one point. And they're making that move. And they got I know that Thomas Sadesky, their offense core, he's an up-and-coming guy. Talked to him many times. Very smart, intelligent, knows how to attack a defense. So, like I said, they have a new, they can be in a 3-down, 4-down. Offensively, we know they're going to throw the football. They got another guy, the Davison boy, number 8, that's up for all league preseason honors. So, we know their quarterback can get the ball out quickly and complete passes, and it's going to challenge our defense.